Starting off with the division winners, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have $17.7 million in cap space. Cut candidates. I have two of them. There's one. I think these two are the most obvious ones. I have Carlton Davis, who got paid, and he's played piss poor, $14.3 million in savings. And there's another guy who doesn't even play snaps for him. I don't know if you're going to say him.
Well, I was going with Carlton Davis.
Russell Gage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that thing with Baker where he was like, well, apparently they don't watch us because he hasn't played since such and such. That was pretty funny.
So Russell Gage is $10 million saved, and Carlton Davis at $14.3 million saved. So, and it's not like your cornerback room is going to be empty. You still have Jamil Dean, who's playing really well. Is definitely outplaying Carlton Davis, who's making a lot more money than he is. So, yeah, I think those two cuts aren't going to hurt you.
I think if you cut Carlton Davis and you cut Shaquille Barrett, you save a ton of mon's
Yeah, I think Shaq's probably going to get cut.
Shaq's not terrible, but he's 32, 33, makes just under $20 million. It's a lot of money for a position that your production falls off massively at that age. Did it surprise you today? Here comes the podcast hijack. I'm famous for this. Did it surprise you today that they restructured Von Miller instead of just cutting him with the personal issues and everything? Also,
I think that's the big thing is the personal issues.
I mean, we talked about it during the season if he might just be let go, and obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah. Sorry, cat's going crazy. Yeah, I think that with Vaughn, we talked about it earlier in the year. I mean, we talked about what, week 14-ish, 15-ish, where I feel like it was our number one, our first podcast, second podcast. We were talking about Vaughn potentially getting let go.
Yep.
So I think he was a prime cut candidate in the fact that he wasn't the Bills, I guess, just believe in his ability to continue to run at 34 years old or however old he is. So surprising, but I mean, you saved $8.6 million, but still, dude, I mean, you could have saved more than that by cutting him. So
definitely an interesting decision, to say the least.
Tampa Bay Bucks, obviously, you have the re-signing of Baker is obviously probably going to be the number one for everybody. But outside of Baker, do you have another guy for them to re-sign?
Yeah, I mean, so much relies on them. Not relies. That's the wrong word. But so much of what they're going to do kind of dangles on what they're going to do with Baker. Obviously, he's their probably most important free agent. They got a couple of their linebackers that are free agents, but I don't think the conversation has to go much further past Baker and what they're doing with him. Obviously, with the Mike Evans thing finalized.
Yeah, and I also have Levante David, too. He's aging. That's probably going to be a guy that they're not going to want to see in another uniform. He's still playing at a decent level, and they're not going to bring back Devin White. So probably going to bring back Levante in my eyes.
But why do you think why Levante over Devin White?
Because Devin White's been benched because of his attitude. He's been benched because of his performance. He's not a very good player. He's younger and is going to command a little bit more money than Levante. I don't think they have any loyalty to a guy like that. Personally. What about their? What's up?
Go ahead.
I was just going to talk about their free agents in terms of who they could bring in. Who do you have for the Bucks?
I mean, I think the Bucks' biggest weakness, obviously, is quarterback right now because they don't have one on the roster. But with the franchise tag to Winfield, they sewed up safety, and it really just depends on what they want to do with the draft. Because I think that interior offensive line for them and cornerback. Obviously, we talked about Carlton Davis, so it kind of just depends what they're going to do. If they go offensive line in the draft, then they go cornerback in free agency. If they go cornerback in the draft, they can go offensive lineman in free agency. But between the draft and the free agency, I think they're going to sew up both those positions, interior offensive line and secondary.
Yeah.
I know that's lame because I didn't pick up players, but I keep mocking the same, your boy Cheeto, that's can they get his production at a draft pick? Sure. Then there's a lot of, Lake and Tomlinson.
Yeah.
From the Jets. I don't know if he's even been cut yet. or if he's a cut
No,
candidate, but
he's a
a
cut
player like
candidate for
that
us.
makes sense. So
Yeah, again, it's they need a lot of their problems come from their offensive line, their defensive line, especially if you're going to cut a guy like Shaq Barrett. What's his name? Something Joe something. Their rotational edge rusher they got some good stuff out of another young player. I always forget the name of as well. At the end of the year, but it's that's what they need. Jadeveon Clowney is a guy that they could bring in for short term. Robert Hunt on the offensive line as well, because a lot of their issues come from guard. They had their center announce his retirement after really not playing all last year, Ryan Jensen. So I think that's where the issues come into play. And I didn't want to use Connor Williams again for center, but he could be there too. New Orleans Saints, negative $21.1 million in cap space. Our only negative cap space that we have for today. Cut candidate, number one guy. Who's your number one guy for cut candidate?
Alvin Kamara.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because your team's not good enough to be spending so much money at running back. Like it just doesn't matter. Derek Carr's a trash can. You can cut. Is it Marcus May? I got that right? You know what I mean? Like you got to get back to a point of flexibility. You have to be a flexible franchise. You have to be a flexible organization to be able to make moves to get better. And whatever you got to do to get better is what you need to do. So Alvin Kamara at his age, it's not. I honestly, I would cut Derek Carr and just start Jameis Winston. Like Derek Carr, the book is out on that dude. It is what it is. Like he had a good year for the Raiders like 6 years ago. It's a wrap on that dude's career.
Yeah. Yeah, cutting Taysom Hill, in my opinion, is probably pretty large as well. Jameis is a free agent, so bringing him back, that's my number one free agent re-signing for them.
Ooh,
1 year, $4 million.
Still a spotlight.
No, that's all right. So bringing him back, the thing is with Derek Carr is you're kind of stuck with the contract. What's really funny about the Saints is we've known the Saints for a little while now to be in cap hell. Right? They're always in cap hell. They could have been out of cap hell if it wasn't for Derek Carr last year. If they didn't sign Derek Carr to this contract, they would be out of cap hell, and we would be talking about the Saints potentially looking for a quarterback. They would be like the Falcons, right? But they're not. They're in cap hell, and they have Derek Carr, and they restructured the deal that basically seals them up for this year and next year as well. They're pretty much stuck with Derek Carr for the next 2 years, and they can do nothing about it. And that sucks for them. But you dug your own grave, and now you're going to go ahead and have to sleep in that hole that you dug yourself, that you were already almost out of. You redug the hole. You were backfilling the hole, and while backfilling it, you dug another hole, and you got into that one. That's what you did. So, again, cutting Taysom, signing Jameis, I think is the top priority for them. What about their free agent signings? Who do you have for free agency? Because, again, this is a team that could use quite a bit of help.
I don't. Can they sign anyone?
That's think the problem. I couldn't really put anyone down.
If you cut Marcus May, if you cut Alvin Kamara, if you cut the Honey Badger, if you cut Demario Davis, do you even have flexibility at this point to even name a top? Like NFL teams are going to sign guys, right? Like they're going to get somebody, but I don't even know. You're
looking to break even, honestly.
And the craziest thing is like their biggest opportunities at this point are like quarterback and left tackle. And it's like, if you tell me a franchise that has a ship without a rudder, it's a franchise that doesn't have a left tackle and it doesn't have a quarterback. Like you don't have a QB, you don't have a left tackle. They don't even really have a left guard. They so it's just the whole left side of their offensive line is washed. Their quarterback is washed. Their running back is old. Their tight end is barely an NFL player anymore. It's just, you got Slant Boy over there who did nothing last year. And then in the midst of all of it, you got Chris Olave. And it's just like, that sucks for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know if it's really worth naming free agents for the New Orleans Saints, honestly.
I know we're not going to do this as a segment, but if there was a segment called the 2020 podcast, the 2020 podcast guesses who the next top 5 players to demand a trade are going to be, I put Chris Olave really high on that list because that franchise ain't got no way to go forward. And why is he going to want to waste the young part of his career over there?
Yeah.
You see these NFL teams, these NFL wide receivers, they get frustrated, and he's got, the corpse of Derek Carr underthrowing him, or he's got half 10-20 vision Jameis Winston overthrowing him. It's just not good, not good over there for
Right.
Chris Olave. So
Yeah. No, for sure. All
and
right.
listen, Saints fans, before you come at me sideways, not only do you got the worst cap situation in the league, and the Chargers exist in this scenario, I think the next closest team to you is like $25 million away. Like, not only are you terrible, it's not even close how terrible you are. Like, you're super terrible. So, hey, you know
Yeah.
what? New Orleans Saints fans, congratulations. You're number one at something, and that's being the number one team in cap hell this year. So kudos to
Yep.
you.
Atlanta Falcons, $31.6 million in cap space. I personally did not have a cut candidate
What about
for
Taylor
this
Heineke?
team. But they need a backup, man. It's not
They got
Desmond
Desmond
Ritter.
Ritter.
No, fuck Desmond Ritter. No.
Desmond Ritter's going to back up Kirk Cousins. What are you talking about?
No, you got to have someone solid to at least back you up.
What about
I
Jonnu
think.
Smith? What do you need a backup tight end for? The only reason
He's
why
the one who played. He's the one who played all the snaps. He got
that's
all the
because
yards.
what's his face is an idiot. It has nothing to do with him. Oh, he's a great tight end. No, it's Arthur
Maybe.
Smith is a moron. That's why.
I mean, yeah, no, I get that, but
what about one
are
of their 12 running backs they have? They could cut Cordell Patterson. They could cut, obviously they're not cutting
It's not going to
Algier.
save him a lot of money to cut Cordell Patterson, though.
I know, but we got to put something in the segment. It can't just be like this team is so talented they can't cut anybody. This is when I said the Cowboys can cut Brandon Cooks, or they can cut, D-Law, because that would save a massive amount of money. Is it likely to happen? Probably not, but that's something they could do to save up money. Why do you hate on my boy Desmond Ritter? 7,000 passing yards in a Madden season 1 year.
Hey, I was a believer in Desmond Ritter. Is Cordell Patterson a free agent? Because I don't even see Cordell Patterson.
Ah, shit. My fault. Yeah. He probably is.
And then they have two rookie running backs.
Whatever.
Or on rookie contracts, I should say. I was like, damn, did I miss that? I'm like, that would have been a cut candidate for sure.
I think Jonnu Smith is a free agent also. Maybe he's a restricted free agent.
He might be.
Cordell Patterson is definitely a free agent.
Yeah. What about re-signing guys? I only have one guy for a re-signing.
Who you got? Don't say Calais Campbell. He's like 57.
I have Calais Campbell.
God, he's so old.
Bro, he's so old, and yet he's still a really good run stopper, and he had 7 sacks last year. I mean, you bring him in on a 1-year deal, man. I mean, screw it. Like,
all right. I would re-sign Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you're going to get him so cheap, and he's like 24. And I know he's bounced around a little bit, but you just fired your head coach. You're bringing in a completely different scheme. There's no reason to go up on young talent when you're, bringing in a completely different situation. What you could probably get him for like 318 or something small like that. Like it's not going to be much because he hasn't done anything.
Let's see.
Calais Campbell, he's like 52.
Hey, it's fine. He's fine. Jeff Okudah is projected. I don't even have a projection on Jeff Okudah.
It's that bad, huh?
It's that bad.
He made like $8 million this year, because it was the last year of his deal or whatever. But I don't believe in giving up in young talent, especially when you're going through a roster turnover and a switch. Completely, Nnamdi Asomugha sucked for the Eagles, right? But it was a scheme thing.
Yeah,
we got to fill the segment.
Team.
Okay, fine. They'll bring back the 40-year-old, the Falcons Super Bowl talented roster with no quarterback.
If it makes you feel better, my biggest free agent signing is not a guy in the trenches. So
let's go. I'm excited.
They need to bring in a wide receiver. I think they need to bring in multiple wide receivers because they have like almost nobody on roster outside of like Drake London. That's a wide receiver. So I think bringing in, mentioned him earlier, bringing in Marquise Brown would probably be good for the team because it's a change of pace guy. Drake London, Marquise Brown. I think that's a pretty good combo though. And maybe draft a guy. Maybe. Spoiler alert.
Drake London, fanfare, but he hasn't done anything yet. So not for sure, for certain, number one over there. So I like wide receiver for Atlanta. That makes a lot of sense. Couple of defensive pieces make sense too. Obviously, they got a pretty good young safety, and
I also have Andrew Van Ginkel too.
That's true too, and they're bringing back the corpse of Calais Campbell for another 7-sack season. He's going to be like that Madden player that's still playing when he's 47. So yeah, I mean, wide receiver makes a lot of sense for them actually.
Yeah. Last team, last place, and the entire NFL. Wow, isn't this fitting? Our last team is last place in the NFL, Carolina Panthers. Talking about the worst team in the league, and you have $9.8 million in cap space.
Well,
is
that's
pretty
fine.
sad.
You don't need cap space when you're the worst team in the league because that means that you're drafting really high, correct?
Yeah, I mean, unless you trade away your draft picks.
Well, if they traded away the draft pick that would have been number 1 in this draft, they would have got someone really good for it, right?
Yeah, unless he's just not working out.
No, that can't be possible. And I know, I haven't watched the Panthers in a couple years, but I know they had this player. He was a superstar running back for him, Christian McCaffrey. I know that they have at least a 3rd and a 4th round pick at the very least for Christian McCaffrey, correct?
Nope.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, Panthers, you're fucked.
$9.8 million in cap space. You could cut probably 98% of the team. But Dante Jackson, $10.5 million in savings. And then also have a lineman as well. Austin Corbett, you could also save as well. So $6.2 million. But they're tied up a little bit with some of their contracts because they just recently signed some of those guys. So
Austin Corbett, Shaq Thompson.
Yeah.
And like I said early, Andy Dalton. Who was the first one that you said?
Dante Jackson.
Yeah, he makes more than 10, right?
Yeah, 10.5 in savings alone.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Woods. They could probably. The thing about Xavier Woods is he's young. He makes less than $7 or $8 million. So it's just,
and he plays well too.
And you gotta. I did an AI search earlier, for like, I wanted it to give me like the oldest player. I just pulled it up. I was looking at it. I wanted to give it the oldest player on the roster that made the most amount of money that was a cut candidate for each team, because I wanted to bring like a different like spin to this one because we've done so many of these. And I got to the Chiefs and Travis Kelce was their cut candidate. And so I just like deleted the AI. I'm like, all right, that's broke. Like, obviously didn't structure that correctly. And he does make $15 million this year and he's really old, but come on now.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, all I came up with for the Panthers was Andy Dalton. And just, you're paying him $6 or $7 million for what?
Yeah. And then you could re-sign the linebacker, Frankie Louvu. He's played well, 3 years, $30 million. So you could if you want to, but if you're going to let him go because your team isn't ready to do any type of competing, totally understand that well. Honestly, re-signing anybody you could really throw anybody out the window because I've already franchise tagged Brian Burns, obviously. So there's that. What about free agents?
Yeah, I mean, re-signs. I had Jeremy Chin. I'm kind of a fan, and then I don't think you want to shed all your offensive talent. I mean, DJ Chark isn't like, who's he throwing the ball to if DJ Chark is gone?
Adam Thielen.
Oh God, Adam Thielen! What a joke!
He had 1,000 yards and like 90 catches. It's like the first time he's done that since like 2019. Funny enough. And I only know they played that well because he was still sitting on my fantasy team, my dynasty fantasy team that's been going since like 2019. So there's that.
I think that the Panthers should pick up the phone and call the Bengals and see what it would take to get T. Higgins. I know that's not a free agent, but he was a free agent. And if it was last week and we were talking about this, I would have said T. Higgins. And I just don't feel like I think we've already talked about the Bengals not necessarily keeping him. So for me, I think that would make sense. Panthers need a number one wide receiver, and they need an actual number one wide receiver, like somebody that can do it all. He can run the routes. He can take it deep. He's a big guy. You can run the pop screen passes to him. Like, you got to get creative and innovative with that offense. You need to get the ball out of Bryce Young's hands and into the hands of playmakers. So T. Higgins, it would be somebody that I would be very high on them trying to get.
Yeah. Well,
I would also trade Burns. I would send him out ASAP for whatever you could possibly get for him. Because what's the point of tagging him and paying him next year? It's not going to make, like, if you can get a second round and a fourth round pick for him and just add young talent. This is the point where anyone on that roster over the age of 29, just get rid of it all and start over.
The problem is I don't know if they can even. They can get that for Brian Burns, yes, but will they want to take it is the question, because they had like an offer on the table from like the Rams or something for 2 first-round picks for him like literally a year ago, and now they're gonna think, well, he just had a career year, he's worth of 2 first-round picks at least, and everyone's gonna be like, no.
How stupid does that sound? They had 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. They have no first-round pick in this draft, and they just stupid. There's a reason why through the course of history, certain NFL franchises are always at the top. They're always at the top. Like certain teams year in and year out, or like, the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes, but let's not pretend that the Chiefs weren't a stable organization. But before that, we like to clown on the Cowboys. We do. We as in me. But every year, motherfuckers are talking about the Cowboys and their Super Bowl hopes. We're I know it's a poverty divisional franchise like you like to call them, but every year the hope is there. Since 2012, except for 3 years with a Tom Sula, Chip Kelly weirdness that, I don't know, Jed York bumped his head and got confused. The 49ers, every year, they're talking about the fact that they're going to go deep in the playoffs. When was the last time we said anything positive about the Carolina Panthers, except for one miraculous season by Cam Newton?
2015.
Who we're not supposed to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's year after year, right, with other franchises too. When's the last time the Raiders have been good? 70s?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, outside of pop random years here and there, but yeah,
wow.
Early 2000s.
The Bills signed. They freed up all that money to sign Mitchell Trubisky.
I told you right before the podcast started that they were reaching out to sign him, bro.
And they signed Taylor Rapp.
Yep.
You're a Bills fan today. You're looking at Tre'Davious White is gone, Poyer's gone, all this stuff, and they're like, "Whoa, we signed Mitchell Trubisky." Boom.
Yep.
We signed our all-star corner to sign Mitchell Trubisky.
It's the MVP, not the MVP. He's the MVP. Okay.
What's that?
The Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player.
That's true. I totally forgot about that. That's excellent.